Some jokes go too far. This one ruined our marriage. I'm 34, male, a high school history teacher in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been told I'm patient to a fault. The kind of guy who grades papers at 11 p.m. without complaining, who gives students second chances when most wouldn't bother, who assumes the best interpretation of things until the evidence becomes overwhelming. I used to think that was a virtue. Turns out, in the wrong marriage, it's a liability. My wife and I had been together for 6 years, married for 3. We own a house in Cary, a suburb southwest of Raleigh. No kids, 2 incomes, a mortgage we were ahead on. From the outside, everything looked settled. From the inside, I know now, it hadn't been settled for a long time. The night it started, I was sitting at the kitchen table grading a set of essays on the causes of World War I. She was in the living room with her phone, laughing at something. That wasn't unusual. Her work friends had a group chat that ran constantly. At 9:14 p.m., my phone buzzed. An iMessage notification from a number I didn't have saved. I assumed it was a student. I picked it up without thinking. It was a screenshot, sent from a number I didn't recognize, no message attached, just an image of a conversation thread. Her name at the top. Her contact photo, the one I'd taken of her at the Outer Banks 2 summers ago. The screenshot showed 4 lines of text from her, sent to what looked like a group chat with a few of her work friends. The first line read, "Honestly, the best part of my day is leaving work knowing I'm going home to the wrong husband, LOL. The second, like physically at the wrong address. Then a laughing emoji from someone else in the thread. Then her again. Derek just gets me in a way that took 6 years of the wrong person to understand." I read it twice. Then I set the phone down on the stack of papers and looked at the wall for a minute. The essays were about how wars start with misread signals and underestimated grievances. The irony wasn't lost on me. She came into the kitchen 20 minutes later to get water. She didn't notice anything different. She asked how the grading was going. I said fine. She went back to the living room. I didn't say a word about the screenshot that night. The number that sent it, I didn't recognize it, but someone had decided I needed to see that conversation. I had no idea who. I didn't reach out to find out, not yet. What mattered was the screenshot itself, and a name I now couldn't unknow. Derek. The way she'd written it, Derek just gets me, wasn't the way someone writes a joke. Jokes have distance. There was no distance in that line. It was close and warm and certain, the way you write about something that's already real, already settled in your chest. I spent the rest of that evening grading papers. I wrote comments in the margins. I calculated averages. I did every mechanical thing a person does when the ground has shifted and they're not ready to look down yet. She went to bed at 10:30 and kissed me goodnight. "Don't stay up too late," she said. "I won't." She worked in pharmaceutical sales. She had a regional team, frequent off-site meetings, a company calendar that I'd never had reason to scrutinize. I'd been proud of how well her career was going over the past 2 years. The promotions, the conference trips, the late evenings, she said, were client dinners. I stayed up until almost 1 a.m., not grading, thinking. The name Derek didn't appear anywhere in her phone when I'd casually seen it over the years. Not in her contacts on the lock screen, not in notification previews, which meant he was saved under something else, or the conversations were somewhere I hadn't thought to look. She'd been careful about that. The screenshot, though, whoever sent it to me either didn't know she'd been careful or wanted to make sure I had at least one thread to pull. I pulled it. The next morning, I texted the unknown number a single word. Why? The response came 4 hours later during my second period class. 3 words. Ask about Phoenix. She had been to Phoenix twice in the last 18 months for what she called regional sales conferences. I'd helped her pack both times. I'd sent good luck texts from our kitchen. I set my phone face down on my desk and finished teaching the class. That afternoon, I started making calls. I'm not, by nature, an investigator. I teach teenagers about dead empires. My skill set involves patience, source evaluation, and understanding how narratives get constructed after the fact to obscure inconvenient truths. Turns out, that last one was exactly what I needed. I didn't go to her phone. Not yet. I started somewhere she wouldn't think to protect. Her work calendar, which synced automatically to a shared household iPad we used for recipes and streaming. She'd set up the sync 2 years ago so I could see when she'd be home late. She'd never turned it off. I scrolled back 18 months. Phoenix trips. One in March, one in September. Both marked as Regional Q1 Summit and Q3 Sales Conference, respectively. Standard entries. But the March one had notation I'd never seen before, a hotel name. I cross-checked it with the conference schedule for that company's Q1 regional meeting, which took about 4 minutes to find publicly online. The conference was in Scottsdale. Different city. The hotel she noted was in downtown Phoenix. That was a thread. I called a family law attorney in Raleigh the next morning before school from my car. North Carolina is a fault-based divorce state. Adultery is recognized as fault grounds, and it matters financially. More specifically, under North Carolina law, alienation of affection and criminal conversation are actual civil torts, which meant that if I could document an ongoing affair, I had a potential civil claim not just against my wife, but against Derek. My attorney, a calm woman who had clearly heard every version of this story, told me to document everything and not confront anyone until she said so. She also told me not to access my wife's personal accounts or devices. I noted that I hadn't. The screenshot had come to me. The calendar had been shared with me voluntarily. Everything I'd found so far, I'd found through access she granted. Over the next 10 days, I built a picture. Derek worked in the same regional pharmaceutical network as my wife, a different company, a competitor sales division, which explained why his name never appeared on her internal work contacts. They had met at an industry networking event 2 years ago. I found a LinkedIn post she'd commented on shortly after, congratulating the event. His profile was public. Mid-30s, based in Durham, which is 25 minutes from our house. 25 minutes. I checked the mileage on her car against what she'd told me about her commute patterns over the past year. I noted it, said nothing. Then she made her first move before she knew I was moving at all. On a Thursday evening, she sat down at the dining room table with a refinancing brochure and her laptop and told me, very reasonably, that rates had dropped and we should look at pulling equity from the house. We had about $140,000 in equity built up. She'd already called a lender, she said. She just wanted my signature on the preliminary application to see what we'd qualify for. I looked at the brochure, then at her. She had the relaxed confidence of someone who expected a quick yes. Let me read through it this weekend, I said. It's just a preliminary inquiry, she said. It doesn't commit us to anything. I know. I still want to read it. A small tightening around her eyes. Then a smile. Of course. That weekend I did not sign it. I also called my attorney and described the refinancing request. My attorney's response was immediate. Under North Carolina law, both spouses must consent to encumber marital property. If she was planning to exit the marriage, liquefying equity first would dramatically improve her financial position post-separation. My attorney told me to proceed with the documentation I had and said we needed to move within 2 weeks. The second escalation came from a direction I hadn't anticipated. A mutual friend, someone we'd known since before the marriage, texted me on a Saturday afternoon to say he'd heard we were having some issues and wanted to check in. He'd heard it from his wife, who was in my wife's friend group. She was already seeding the narrative with people around us. She was building the version of events where I was the problem, emotionally distant, career-obsessed, inattentive, and she'd found someone who actually appreciated her. She was preparing the social landscape before she burned it down. What she didn't know was that the unknown number had texted me again. This time, a date, a restaurant in Durham, and a time. 3 days away. I thanked them. I made a reservation for a table near the back. I called my attorney, and then I called a friend who does freelance photography. I explained what I needed. He agreed. The restaurant was a mid-range Italian place in downtown Durham. Warm lighting, close tables, the kind of spot that felt private without being hidden. I arrived 40 minutes early. My photographer friend was already there, seated at a corner table with a camera bag and a glass of wine, looking like someone waiting for a date. I sat at a different table, toward the back, with a direct sight line to the entrance. I ordered water and a bread basket and waited. She came in at 7:23 with Derek. He was tall, well-dressed, easy in his body the way people are when they're comfortable with a situation. She was wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. She told me she was having dinner with a work friend, a female colleague she'd mentioned before. I watched them be seated. I watched him touch her hand across the table. I watched her laugh, head tilting back slightly, fully relaxed. The way she'd laughed on that voice memo my fiancé sent me. I'd read about in the document I prepared. No, I mean the laugh I hadn't heard her use at home in a long time. My photographer friend documented the evening with quiet professionalism. Nothing intrusive. Enough. I left before they finished their meal. I sat in my car for a few minutes, then drove home. When she got home at 9:45, she told me dinner was lovely. Her friend was going through some stuff, and she was tired. She asked how my evening was. I told her quiet. She went to change, and I sat on the couch and texted my attorney. We had what we needed. Here is where she became genuinely dangerous. Monday afternoon, while I was at school, she submitted a unilateral application to the lender using her own income documentation to begin a single borrower home equity line. She could not legally draw from it without my signature, but she was establishing the account structure. My attorney caught it through a credit inquiry alert I'd set up. We moved to file immediately. That Friday evening she received, via certified mail, a formal legal notice of my intent to file for divorce on fault grounds, specifically adultery, along with a preservation order on all marital assets, including the home equity, the joint investment account, and any accounts held individually that contained assets accumulated during the marriage. Under North Carolina law, once formal notice of fault-based claim is served, dissipation of marital assets can be treated as a separate financial harm in equitable distribution. She called me from the kitchen. I was upstairs. "What is this?" she said. I came downstairs. She was holding the envelope, the pages half unfolded. "It's exactly what it says it is," I said. You can't be serious." Her voice shifted registers twice in one sentence. "This is because of one stupid message. One thing I said to my friends as a joke. I have the Phoenix Hotel," I said. "I have the Durham restaurant. I have photographs. I have 2 years of calendar discrepancies. I have a credit inquiry from last Monday." I paused. "How much more of the joke would you like to explain?" She stared at me. Then she said the thing people say when they've lost the argument but haven't accepted it yet. "You've been spying on me. You shared your calendar with me," I said. 2 years ago. From this kitchen. The expression on her face moved through several things quickly. Then she said she was calling her attorney. I told her that was a reasonable idea. Then she called Derek. I know because she went to the back porch to do it, and I could hear the tone of the conversation through the glass door. Clipped, urgent, the sound of two people whose plan had just caught up with them. What she didn't know was that Derek's wife had been the unknown number all along. Derek's wife had found out approximately 3 weeks before she texted me. She'd gone through his phone after finding inconsistencies in their own finances. He'd been spending money on travel he hadn't accounted for, including 2 trips to Phoenix. She'd found everything, including my wife's contact, saved under a coworker's name in his phone. Instead of confronting him immediately, she texted me. She wanted documentation from both sides before she moved. We met in person only once, my attorney's conference room, with both of our lawyers present. She was composed and thorough. She had her own records, credit card statements, location data from shared Find My app Derek hadn't thought to disable, and 3 months of wire transfers to a shared Venmo account under a neutral name that both of them had used for expenses they didn't want their respective spouses to see. Together, our documentation was comprehensive. In North Carolina, criminal conversation, the civil tort for adultery, requires proof of sexual intercourse between the defendant and a married person's spouse. The bar is actual documentation, not inference. Between my photographs, her records, the hotel bookings, and the financial trail, we had more than enough. Both of us filed civil claims simultaneously, me against Derek, her against my wife. My wife's attorney attempted to argue that fault grounds were being used instrumentally to extract a better equitable distribution outcome, which is true in the sense that fault affects distribution under North Carolina General Statute Section 50-20. The judge wasn't moved. The evidence was the evidence. The civil claims settled out of court within 60 days. Derek paid a negotiated sum to me, and his wife paid a negotiated sum to Derek's wife. Neither figure will mean anything without context, but combined they covered both of our respective attorney fees with room beyond that. The attorneys structured both settlements to close simultaneously, which my attorney noted was unusual but efficient. On the divorce itself, equitable distribution under North Carolina law begins with the presumption of a 50-50 split of marital assets, but fault can alter that calculus. Given the documented evidence of adultery and the attempted unilateral equity draw on the marital home, the final settlement gave me 62% of the net home equity after sale, sole retention of my pension contributions, and full ownership of the joint investment account, which she had contributed to minimally over the course of the marriage. She retained her vehicle, her personal accounts, and her professional licensing. The house sold in 31 days. I cleared enough to put a down payment on a smaller place in North Raleigh, closer to the school where I work. Derek and his wife divorced. Whatever that rebuilding looks like for her, I hope it goes better than she expects. My wife, my ex-wife, tried to reach me once, about 2 months after the divorce finalized. Not through an attorney. A text from her personal number. It said, "I'm sorry. I genuinely didn't think it would go this far." I read it once. I think she meant it in the way people mean things when consequences have already arrived. What she didn't understand, and maybe still doesn't, is that when you build something this carefully, the cover story, the narrative seeding, the equity maneuver, and then call it a joke when it unravels, you're not apologizing for the joke. You're apologizing for getting caught. I didn't respond. I have 12 years of teaching teenagers about how wars start. Mostly they start because someone assumed the other side wasn't paying attention. She made a reasonable assumption. She was wrong. If this story had you reading through fake conference trips all the way to a dual civil lawsuit, subscribing costs less than a Phoenix hotel room, And unlike her alibi, it holds up.